Hi folks. So I'm reporting this feature from Colombia. I'm just going to wait a few minutes until you log in. We'll get started. So for those who don't know who I am, I'm Ashley Cowie. I'm a Scottish historian. I'm an explorer. I'm a TV presenter, and I've been based in Colombia researching for about a year now. The first two parts of this story are available in documentary form on ashleycowie.com, and the articles are also available on Ancient Origins. So the first two articles that have been published over the last 8 weeks in Ancient Origins give the backstory to a recent discovery that's been made just north of Bogota in Colombia. It started about 8 weeks ago. I was called by a local historian in Tabio, a small village north of Bogota. I went along there. He had read my articles about Peruvian cultures, and he claimed to have something of great interest. So I went along, and he introduced himself. He's the ex-viceroy to the president of Venezuela. His great-granduncle was the ex-archbishop of Colombia. So he speaks with some authority. He sat me down and told me that a local mountain, Hoyca, the rock of Hoyca, a sacred Muisca mountain, was carved with 3 giant Muisca carved heads or faces, is how he described it. So we spent 2 hours in his backyard photographing the mountain from about a 2-mile distance to see if we could see any of these carved heads, these indigenous faces. We didn't. So the next morning, I packed up my kit. I got into my van, grabbed the dog, and we headed to Hoyca. And I was literally below the mountain looking up. I couldn't see very much at all, so I relocated 2 kilometers to the east. And lo and behold, within 5 minutes, I had established 6 parts of the mountain face that quite obviously were carved with heads. They're all there on the blog feature on ashleycowie.com. You can see them on the documentary shorts. These are quite clearly carved faces. So I published a documentary about the covering of the 3 carved heads, the 3 heads that look most like carved faces to me, in my interpretation of the mountain. So I published this, and 2 weeks ago got a telephone call from the mayor of Tabio, the small village beside Mount Hoyca. He told me he'd read my article. He had some issues with it which he wanted to address. So I took a local lawyer along and a translator last week. We went along and met the mayor of Tabio. And he had a kind of air of smugness, a kind of air of knowing around him. And I was waiting for him to trash my discovery of the 3 carved heads, but he did quite the opposite. He showed me and told me there are 19 carved indigenous heads on the rock of Hoyca. Now, that's just incredible. What's more is he tells me that one of them, a particular feature below the chin of the most obvious carved head, is known locally to the indigenous people as the Puerta del Dios, the gateway to the gods. Now, in Peru or Bolivia, there's a gateway to the gods carved beside Lake Tiwanaku. Very similar structure, a rectangular, what appears to be a doorway in the cliff face. It doesn't go anywhere. So, from the discovery of 3 carved heads on the Mount Rock of Hoyca, it's expanded to the discovery of 19 carved heads, which we intend to fly a 4K drone around in the next 2 weeks with some archaeologists from Bogota, so we can finally map, plot, and determine which are carved heads and which are pareidolia and a figment of our imaginations. Now, where this is going is it's actually heated up quite a bit in the last week. The mayor of Tabio has also given me evidence to show that these carved heads are contemporary with a site about 8 miles south called Facatativa. Facatativa does have carvings that have been established as being 12,000 years old. And the mayor of Tabio has informed me that these carved heads are also 12,000 years old. Now that sounds ludicrous from anyone from the UK, where our Mesolithic history started about 10,000 BC. I have a huge problem with swallowing the fact they're 12,000 years old, because what that would have meant is that when the Bogota savanna was flooded and the water level was about 1 kilometer higher, these people would have carved the heads from canoes or from ropes suspended down from the top of the mountain. But as I say, these things don't fit in with my historical understanding of the cultures in South America 10,000 or 12,000 years ago. These guys were hunting, surviving, and scratching a subsistence in really testing and harsh environments. To picture them carving 150-meter high godheads it really does take a little bit of retuning of our perception of what these people were doing in South America. But it's super exciting, and goodness only knows we might establish that they're 12,000 years old, which would put them at the top of the pile. They would be the largest carved human artifacts from 12,000 BC that have been recovered anywhere. And that would be pretty cool to be on the front end of this, leading the spearhead of that discovery. And currently I am. And within the next 3 weeks, all this is going to be rubber stamped and firmed up. Are there 19 carved heads? Are they 18,000 years old? And which parts of this exploration, which parts of this indigenous knowledge and cultural knowledge has been fabricated and built upon? Because with cases like this, you'll very often find there was a carved head carved originally, and it's been expanded out where people have seen their own, possibly made their own. Children can do all sorts of nonsense on a weekend. So within 3 weeks, we're going to have some proper definitive answers, not coming from me, coming from the authorities in Bogota. I've done all the preliminary research, gathered all the evidence and the data, but we need people that know a lot more about me to rubber stamp this. So you can keep up to date with what's happening out here in Colombia on ashleycowie.com. You can subscribe to my blog. All of these short form documentaries will be shared with Ancient Origins, so you can access them here. But I want to just thank you all for tuning in and staying up to date with what's happening here in Colombia. Certainly quite exciting. The next you're going to see from me is my attempt to walk through the Puerta del Dios, the Gateway of the Gods. That will be released next week on ashleycowie.com. So thanks again for tuning in, folks. I'll see you in a couple of weeks on Facebook Live. Cheers.